I'm going to be giving my grades for some of the most notable day 2 NFL free agency signings. We're going to start off with the Washington Commanders signing Marcus Mariota to a 1-year deal worth $10 million. I give this a C. You know, Marcus Mariota isn't a good backup quarterback, but he's not a bad backup option to have. It's just that you could do a little bit better. You could have gotten Joshua Dobbs. Joshua Dobbs, to me, is a better backup QB than Marcus Mariota. And we saw how bad Marcus Mariota looked when he was starting for the Philadelphia Eagles in the preseason last year. You know, he wasn't a good backup for him. So I don't really like this signing by the Washington Commanders. They've been spending a lot of money in free agency. They definitely have made way better signings than this one, but this definitely has to be one of the worst signings that they've made up to this point, and they've been killing free agency. Like, they signed defensive end Clelin Ferrell. I give this signing a B-. Clelin Ferrell, he is a bust. He was a 4th overall pick by the Raiders a few years back, and he hasn't come anywhere close to living up to the high expectations that were placed upon him getting drafted that high. But he still is a fairly good role player. He was really good against the run for the 49ers. And he also can give you a little bit of some flavor when it comes to getting after the quarterback. This is a good depth signing. He could be a good rotational piece for Dan Quinn on that defensive line. I'm going to give it a B-. You're pretty much signing him for nothing, only a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. This is a good deal. You get a really good rotational backup piece on that D-line. You get somebody who's really good against the run. This was a way better signing than what they did when they signed Marcus Mariota. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings are receiving an A- from me for signing running back Aaron Jones. I was shocked that the Packers cut Aaron Jones after they got Josh Jacobs. We were thinking that they were going to have the best 1-2 punch in the NFL, but instead, they want Aaron Jones to take a pay cut, nearly like 40-50%. He wasn't going for it, and they said adios. And Aaron Jones is a top 10 back, and when he was healthy and he came back during their playoff run, I mean, he was damn near unstoppable. Go back and watch his tape against the 49ers, bro. He was a man amongst boys. If he can play that way in every single game for Minnesota this year, this offense is going to be way better than what you may think. Yeah, they may have Sam Darnold at quarterback, but Sam Darnold, as long as they only ask him to be a game manager with the weapons that they have around them, and you sign Aaron Jones, this is a signing that's going to make Minnesota a little bit of a sleeper team. I don't think they're going to be a crappy team this season. You know, Kevin O'Connell is a pretty good offensive-minded coach. Sam Darnold, he's a decent bridge, stopgap quarterback. Maybe you can get a good year out of him. But with everything that he has around him and adding Aaron Jones, a running back that can do it all, not only is he a factor on the ground, but he also is a pretty big factor in the passing game also. So for Minnesota, you had one of the NFL's worst rushing offenses. You bring in Aaron Jones. He should help improve that run game that gave you so many issues last year. The Tennessee Titans signed linebacker Kenneth Murray. This is one of the worst free agency signings that I've seen up to this point. I give this a D-. I damn near gave it an F, but at least Kenneth Murray gives you a little bit of something in the run game, all right? He is pretty decent against the run, but in pass coverage, this dude looks like a deer in headlights, man. This dude can't cover nobody worth the soul. He isn't good in zone coverage. Don't ask him to stick no running backs out of the backfield or any tight ends, and he was a former first-round pick a few years back coming out of Oklahoma, and there was a lot of hype about Kenneth Murray when he was coming out of the draft a few years ago, and he's been a really big disappointment. If you want to talk about some of the biggest busts in the NFL over the last decade, I definitely believe that Kenneth Murray belongs in that conversation, man, because in the 4 or 5 seasons that he spent with the Chargers, the dude, you never, ever heard this dude's name called barely at all when you watched any Chargers game. Now, going to Tennessee, maybe they see something that a lot of us don't see in them. Maybe they can find a way to have him playing at the level that was expected when the Chargers took him in the first round a few years ago, but I don't really see what they're getting out of this signing. And it's a massive overpay too. 2 years, $18 million for a guy that at best right now is a backup linebacker. Oh, I don't know about this one, man. This got to get a D from me. I can't give this anything more than that. The Steelers, though, I am hurt that they traded away wide receiver Deontay Johnson to Carolina, but I'm not going to lie to you. I was happy as hell when I saw that notification pop up on my phone that we signed linebacker Patrick Queen from the Baltimore Ravens too, which made it even more sweeter to me. We fixed one of our biggest issues on defense, which has been poor linebacker play. Like, oh my goodness, the linebacker play for Pittsburgh has been so atrocious. Nobody can stop the run. Nobody can tackle. Nobody can cover. The only decent linebacker the Steelers have is Cole Holcomb, and he got injured last year. Outside of him, it's nobody. Patrick Queen is coming off the best season of his career. He played at a Pro Bowl level. He's better in pass coverage than anybody else the Steelers had in pass coverage at linebacker last year. And he also is really phenomenal against the run. I give this an A-. All right, this is one of the best free agency signings that the Steelers have made in recent memory. Because you got to remember, the Steelers are not a team that is known for going after big names in free agency when free agency first starts. They're normally one of those teams that likes to wait around and try to find like a good veteran that they can get for a favorable deal like they did with Patrick Peterson last year. So I was really shocked to see the Steelers sign Patrick Queen, and to give him the deal that they gave him, 3 years, $41 million. I think that may be a little bit of a good value, because I was thinking that Patrick Queen possibly could have signed the 4-year deal worth 50 or 60 million. So he got way less than what I was expecting him to get, which is a good thing for Pittsburgh because you still got more money to spend to allocate to other positions. So I'm really happy with the signing of Patrick Queen. This is probably one of the best signings that I can recall Pittsburgh making in a while. Does it piss you off how much you pay for your monthly phone bill? Why are you getting frustrated when our partner Mint Mobile has plans as low as $15 a month that give you unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network? Stop getting frustrated with how much you spend on your monthly phone bill and go to trymintmobile.com/JT Sports in description and pinned comment down below to get access to premium wireless for only $15 a month. That's only $15 a month. Switching to Mint is easy. It only takes 15 minutes to do. If you're pissed off with how much you pay for your monthly phone bill, switch to Mint Mobile today and go to trymintmobile.com/JT Sports in description and pin comment down below to get premium wireless for only $15 a month. Stop getting upset with how much you spend on your monthly phone bill and switch to Mint Mobile today. Now, the Washington Commanders, we're back on them because, man, they just making it rain in free agency with all the money they spend. And they signed offensive guard Nick Allegretti, who was playing in the Super Bowl for Kansas City with a crazy injury. And he isn't a starter. He's been more of a backup, more of a rotational piece. He comes in if somebody gets injured, but he's decent. I give it a C+. The only reason I can't give it a B is because he hasn't really been known for being a good starter. He's just known for being a quality backup. Now, I'm not saying that if he does end up starting this year for Washington, he's going to be terrible. It's just that we don't really know how good this dude truly is because we don't really have a lot of reps of him actually being a full-time starter for a whole season. So I got to give this a C+. Now, if he ends up playing at a really high level for the Commanders this season, which he most definitely can. I don't think he's going to be bad. I think he can be decent. But if he ends up playing at a Pro Bowl level, then next year I'll probably come back to this and call myself an idiot and change this grade from a C+ to like a B+ or A- because the potential definitely is there. He definitely does have upside. He did play pretty well in the Super Bowl. And he does have like some pretty good film when he comes in to replace anybody that has gotten injured on the interior of Kansas on the interior of Kansas City's offensive line the last couple of years. But I just don't really know how good this dude is as a full-time starter. So until I see that, I got to give him a C+. Still a really solid signing. Just don't really know too much about him as a starter because he's been more of a quality backup. Jameis Winston. I really wanted to see my boy get one more opportunity to compete to be a starting quarterback. And instead, he decides to become Deshaun Watson's backup in Cleveland. He's signing a pretty favorable deal, 1 year, $8.7 million. I give it a B-. You're getting one of the best backups in the NFL. Deshaun Watson, he's been injury prone ever since you traded for him. And if he continues to stink it up, you put that boy Jameis Winston in there and he'll have that offense humming. One thing about Jameis Winston is that, yeah, he may have his turnover issues, but he can move the ball downfield for you offensively. You're never going to have a game where you just get shut out on offense with Jameis Winston at QB. He likes to push the football downfield. We know how ultra aggressive he is, which can be a pro and a con. Most times it ends up being his downfall. But for the Cleveland Browns to get a quality backup for $8.7 million, only 1 year, this is a B- signing. Okay, Jameis Winston is one of the better quarterback options that you can find to be your backup. And I still believe that he is a low-end starter. So maybe, if Deshaun Watson gets hurt for a game or two, Jameis Winston comes in, he performs pretty well. The Browns got a really good coaching staff, a really talented roster around them. So he could come in, play good for 2-3 games. Deshaun Watson comes back healthy. He goes back to the bench and, he just earned himself maybe another opportunity in 2025. So I'm eager to see how this Jameis Winston backup story in Cleveland pans out. A lot of people thought they were going to bring back Joe Flacco after how well he played. But maybe Joe Flacco is just saying, last year was just a one-off thing and I'm hanging back up the cleats and I'm going to just enjoy retirement for good this time. Now, next up, we have the Bengals signing tight end Hunter Henry. I give this a B. Hunter Henry is really underrated. And not a lot of people really talked about this signing at all, but if you think about how bad New England's offense was last year, if I were to tell you that Hunter Henry was probably their best weapon in the passing game, you probably would say, man, JT, he played for the Patriots. Like, who else do they really have? And that's understandable. But for you to be a tight end and be the best option on the worst offense in the National Football League, imagine what he's going to be able to do with Joe Burrow. Now, you had Irv Smith last year. He didn't do anything. Hunter Henry last year for New England had 6 touchdowns. He's also a pretty decent blocker as well. He should be way better than what Irv Smith was. And if you go back to his first season in New England in 2021 when he got decent quarterback play and they still had Josh McDaniels calling the plays, the dude had 9 touchdowns and 75 targets, caught 50 of them. So this is a really good underrated signing by the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of people aren't going to talk about this, but Hunter Henry, he was underutilized, not really due to the fact that the Patriots didn't try to get him involved, but he just didn't have good quarterback play for him to truly show how good he is. With Joe Burrow, Hunter Henry could be a Pro Bowler, potentially. So I love this signing for the Cincinnati Bengals. Really underrated. It's going to go overlooked. But if you're looking for a decent tight end to draft in fantasy football this year, I definitely would be looking to target Hunter Henry. You're probably going to be able to get him late in the draft, and it's going to be one of those picks that you're just using to fill off your bench. Hunter Henry is going to be really productive for Cincinnati this year. The Dolphins signed former Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass rusher Shaq Barrett. The downfall of Shaq Barrett has to be studied. He went from being an all-pro 1 year, having double-digit sacks, and then after that, this dude just completely fell off the cliff. Now, last year, he had a death that he was dealing with his daughter, which, prayers out to him. I know that definitely was a tough situation to go through. Hopefully this season, he's in a better mental state, and he can bounce back. this is a C plus signing for me because, Shaq Barrett, you don't even know if he's even going to be able to give you even 6 sacks. He may give you like 3 or 4 at most. But I don't really see him turning into what he was when he ended up having that big season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2019, going for 19 and a half sacks. And even after that season, he had 8 sacks in 2020, 2021, he had 10 sacks. And then after that, that's when the fall off really started. I mean, this dude hasn't come close to looking anything like his 2019 form. And I think at this point, it's safe to say that his career is now starting to hit that threshold where he's starting to decline. So at this point, I don't view this more as a depth signing, good backup if you end up having another injury that you have to deal with to one of your marquee pass rushers. So I give the Shaq Barrett signing by the Miami Dolphins a C+. The Atlanta Falcons signed Darnell Mooney, and I like the signing. I just don't like what the hell they paid him. What are you doing giving Darnell Mooney a 3-year deal worth $39 million when he wasn't good for the Bears last season? I find it funny how everybody said that Justin Fields had a bad coaching staff, but the offensive coordinator got hired like his first day being on the market by the Raiders. And then you got guys like Darnell Mooney getting overpaid by the Falcons, but people swear up and down Justin Fields had no weapons though. Darnell Mooney is a really good deep threat. And with Kirk Cousins, he definitely is going to be a good third option in this offense behind Drake London and Kyle Pitts. But with Darnell Mooney, you wonder, can he stay healthy? And 2, can he be more consistent? Because a lot of people have always been pretty high on Darnell Mooney. And it seems like every year people feel like he could have a breakout season and it never happens. Maybe he just is one of those wide receivers that's just a good number 2, number 3 option. Because outside of his first 2 seasons in Chicago, the last 2 years have been really underwhelming. And for him to get this big of a deal, considering that, you have durability concerns and he isn't really a number 2 wideout in my opinion, but he's getting number 2 wideout money. This is a massive overpay by the Atlanta Falcons. Like, I get that you need receivers, but if you're going to give this deal to any wideout, why not just go and try to get Calvin Ridley back or try to sign Marquise Brown? Those are better options than Darnell Mooney. And it would make your offense a hell of a lot better, especially with Kirk Cousins throwing the football. Like I said, I don't hate this signing. I just hate what they're paying him. $39 million is way too much for somebody who has been on the decline the last 2 years of his career. The Baltimore Ravens signed Derrick Henry. The rich just continue to get richer, don't they? This is the best signing that took place today. I give it an A+. Derrick Henry was already linked to the Ravens during the trade deadline. And the Tennessee Titans, I guess they weren't ready to part ways with him at that time because they just had so much respect for what he means to the organization and what he's done for that franchise that they were just willing to just let him finish off his final season in Tennessee versus just trading him at the deadline, which I think is pretty respectable. If Derrick Henry didn't want to get traded, let him finish out his tenure with Tennessee. He is one of the greatest players of the Titans franchise history. So it makes sense. And for Baltimore, as soon as you saw this guy on the open market, you knew that he was pretty much a lock-in pick to go to Baltimore and be their next RB1. They are losing Gus Edwards. They lose J.K. Dobbins. He's a free agent also. So is Dalvin Cook. So the only running backs that they have outside of Derrick Henry is Keaton Mitchell, who's coming off a season-ending injury, and you got Justice Hill. Do you not know how scary this Ravens backfield is going to look? You got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry lining up in the same backfield? Like, oh my goodness. Like, how are you going to try the game plan for the Ravens offense now? It's like, if you try to game plan to stop Lamar and try to keep him from getting out to the edges, they're just going to pound the rock up the middle with Derrick Henry. And then it's like, if you want to try to just go all in and stop the run, they're just going to beat you over the top, throwing the football all over the yard to Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews. So this Ravens offense was already stacked, but now they just become super stacked with the addition of Derrick Henry. And you're signing him to a 2-year deal. And I think it's a pretty favorable deal. It's not one of those contracts where you're massively overpaying, because I do believe that we're about to start to see the decline of Derrick Henry sooner rather than later. But the thing with Derrick Henry is that he's a Hall of Fame caliber player. So Hall of Fame caliber players, they regress at a way slower rate than the average player does. So yeah, Derrick Henry's getting up there in age. He's getting into those forsaken years of running backs. But he still can give you at least 1 or 2 more highly productive seasons. But I think that's all he got left. After 2 more years, I definitely think that he probably hangs it up, or he just becomes, a RB2 and a really good, running back to complement a younger RB1 in the next couple of years. But right now, he's still one of the best running backs in the game, and you boys better put some respect on King Henry. Like, look, I'm a Steelers fan, but I'm not going to lie. Even I was a little bit, excited when the news came out that they signed Derrick Henry officially, because I want to see what him and Lamar Jackson, the same backfield, is going to look like, and how many problems that's going to create for opposing defenses. A+ grade for this signing. The Commanders, once again, we're talking about them. They signed Dante Fowler Jr. to a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million. Another great pickup for Washington. Dante Fowler follows Dan Quinn from Dallas to Washington. He's another good rotational pass rusher. He's not a guy that's going to give you like 8-9 sacks. He's a guy that's going to come in, give you maybe 5-6 sacks a season. He's pretty decent against the run as well. So you just continue to add more depth and build up your rotation on the defensive line. People keep wondering if what the Washington Commanders are doing right now is enough to replace the production of Montez Sweat and Chase Young. A lot of people right now are saying no, but I kind of say yes. Chase Young wasn't that good with the 49ers. We know Montez Sweat is a stud. It's going to be hard to replace that. And you don't have any edge rushers on your team right now that you look at and you say, yeah, like, that's one of those dudes that is going to get 10 sacks a season. You don't have any of those guys. The guys that you have signed in free agency that are currently on your team at this moment are guys that are going to give you 8, maybe 9 sacks most if they just have a great season. But realistically, yeah, you don't have a lot of elite pass rushing talent, but you do have a lot of depth at that position. And you do have guys that can get after it. And you may not have an elite guy, but you got a rotation of guys that you can just rotate in and out of the game that can generate a decent pass rush for you. Now, you're going to have the best pass rush in the NFL? Absolutely not. But with guys like Dante Fowler and Dorrance Armstrong, Washington's pass rush, I think they'll be all right. They won't be great, but they'll be all right. We got the last move by the Washington Commanders. Jeremy Chinn, formerly was the safety the last couple of years for the Carolina Panthers. This is a B+ signing for me. The reason why is because Jeremy Chinn is a really versatile chess piece. Not only can he play safety, but you can play him at linebacker. You can play him at slot corner. There's so many ways that you can utilize Jeremy Chinn's skill set. He is really unique. And we saw how Dan Quinn was able to use guys like Marco Parsons and number 14, the running back, I believe his name, the linebacker out of FAMU who went on draft, I believe his name was Marquise Bell. He was a safety who ended up getting converted to linebacker for Dallas, and he played pretty well this season. So if you look at what Dan Quinn did with Marquise Bell, a young safety that was undrafted out of FAMU, and had him playing at a pretty high level as a converted linebacker when he really is a safety, imagine what he can do with Jeremy Chinn. When I end up releasing my most underrated free agent signings of this offseason, Jeremy Chinn is definitely going to be high up on the list, because I don't think a lot of people know how good Jeremy Chinn truly is. Now, his pass coverage may not be as good as what you would like, but it still is good enough that, with his versatility, he just brings so much to your team and your defense. And I just think the Commanders defense got a lot better with not only signing Jeremy Chin, but the other signings that they've made on that side of the ball the last couple of days. Next up, we have the Houston Texans signing edge rusher Danielle Hunter. This is an A. The Texans have been in the market for our star pass rusher. Danielle Hunter, he is getting up there in age, but he's coming off a fantastic season for the Minnesota Vikings. And the Minnesota Vikings, there were rumors saying that they were looking to trade him dating back to around before the preseason started last year, but they ended up keeping him. He ended up balling out, and he's getting a massive contract. They're signing him to a 2-year deal, $49 million. $48 million of that is going to be fully guaranteed. And he's going to be a good mentor to a young guy like a Will Anderson who just won Defensive Rookie of the Year. You got him on one side. You got Danielle Hunter on the opposite side. That's going to be a really good pass rushing duo. When you think about the AFC South, having guys like Trevor Lawrence, you got Will Levis. You need to be able to get after the quarterback. You got to be able to affect that pocket. And you definitely are going to be able to do that and then some now that you're going to have the Danielle Hunter and a Will Anderson that potentially could give you 10, maybe 11 sacks in year 2. I can't wait to see what the Houston Texans continue to do because they traded for Joe Mixon also. Not really going to spend too much time on that, but I like what the Texans have done. There were some Houston fans that were getting a little bit impatient. They were like, why aren't we making no moves? Like, we got money. We need to sign somebody. Well, here you go, Houston Texans fans. You got Danielle Hunter. Great pickup. Great signing. A grade for me. And lastly, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, who right before I went on live, they signed him to a 3-year deal worth $33 million. This is a B+ grade. He missed the majority of last year with the Detroit Lions due to an injury, but when he was on the field, he was making plays. He always just has a nose for the ball. Every time the play ends, he's always somewhere in the proximity or he's making a play. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is definitely going to improve what was one of the worst secondaries in the National Football last year, man. Like, Philadelphia's secondary just got absolutely tore up by damn near everybody they played. Like, do y'all remember when they allowed Drew Lock to engineer a 94-yard game-winning touchdown drive? Like, unbelievable. Like, yeah, like, bring Chauncey Gardner back ASAP. Great signing by Philadelphia. I give it a B+. And these are my grades for day 2 of NFL free agency. Give your thoughts on these in the comment section below. Which grade is too low? Which are too high?